Welcome back to Be an Informed Voter. We at WTNB bring candidates to you so you can get to know the people who are soliciting your vote. Today we have with us Steven Reynolds. Steve's a candidate for the 4th Congressional District. Hello, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, Jim. Thanks for having us here today in Bradley County.
We're pleased to have you, and thank you so much for stopping by the studio today. Tell the people of the 4th Congressional District who Steven Reynolds is.
Thanks for that question, Jim. Hi, folks. My name is Steven Reynolds, and I live in Rutherford County. I've lived there for the last 28 years. I'm a native Tennessean and a first-time candidate. I grew up in the infrastructure industry, crushing stone, making asphalt, concrete, building roads, building bridges, and I've decided to run for Congress this time, so I'm the first-time candidate, Jim.
How about that? I've been told you're a pretty successful businessman, Steven.
Well, thanks a lot, Jim. I've been around, I started my career in Rutherford County with nothing more than a shovel and a rock pile as an hourly employee. And over the last 28 years, it's carried me to 46 states and 9 different countries. And every time that I was out there, I was advocating for work to bring back home to Tennesseans and to families who depended on the success rate that I reached while I was out there on the road. So I've actually gone out and worked to bring jobs back to Tennesseans.
Wonderful. Tell us a little bit about the Steven Reynolds family.
Absolutely. I'm married, and my wife Shelley, she's here in the studio today, and then we have 3 children. My son Austin is a freshman at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and then we have 2 daughters, one in high school and one in middle school. So,
how about that? Well, I wore this special tie because I'd been told that you had a relative up at UT. Looking forward to a continued great season here for the UT Vols. Being from Murfreesboro, and we're down here almost on the other end of the state, this 4th Congressional District reaches a broad span of Tennesseans, doesn't it?
It does. There's about 750,000 people in the 4th Congressional District, and it actually runs from Spring Hill all the way down here into Cleveland, Tennessee, which are 2 time zones and almost 6,000 square miles. So it's 16 counties total, and it's quite a distance, but I'm fortunate to live here in Tennessee my entire life. I have great friends here in Bradley County, and I was coming to Cleveland before I decided to run for office, and really enjoy my time here in East Tennessee.
Well, Steven, there's something that many people are concerned about is there's a lot of skepticism prevalent in our country, not just the 4th Congressional District or Bradley County. Such low voter turnout, people not supporting candidates. Why in the world would you want to run for Congress when this degree of skepticism and attack on people who are holding public office prevails?
That's a great question, Jim. You know, Tennessee ranks 50th in the nation in voter turnout, which is not something to be proud of. I'm very proud of Tennessee. We're the volunteer state, and the folks I know from Tennessee, they would give a stranger their shirt off of their back. But for some reason, we've lost faith, especially in our federal government. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to run, Jim, because we need average citizens to return to our Congress. And that's the only way that we're going to get our government functioning again. We have a lot of folks, there's a lot of vitriolic talk out there and a lot of ugliness, and it's time to start unifying people and working in a bipartisan fashion so that we can bring people together and actually get our government moving again. We're so polarized today that everything is at complete gridlock, and so I'm running for Congress to try to bring common sense back to Washington, D.C. and to get the government actually working again.
Going off from that, what are the major issues that you see that Congress has to deal with in terms of the legislation that's there, the special interest groups who seem to get whatever they want, and our fiscal problems? I know that's a multifaceted questions, Steve. But
Yeah,
what are they?
Yeah, well, one of the main things that we talk about here in the 16 counties of the 4th District, and it really depends on which county you're in because it's such a vast difference. Everyone has different problems. But jobs are really the key here in the economy. Tennessee is at the bottom of the list in wages, and we're also have more folks on minimum wage than any other state in the union. So, you know, what we have to do is invest in our jobs here, invest in our infrastructure in order to attract world-class jobs here, which we hope in turn will raise our wages and raise the standard of living for everyone here in Tennessee. So the Congress is facing that of dealing with the economy. They're also dealing with entitlements and Social Security, Medicare, of course, the health care issue is out there as well. And so there are many issues that are facing our country today. But what I want to do is work with both sides to try to find common sense solutions. We have to find sustainable funding for our infrastructure. We have to find sustainable funding for our education systems. And we have to start looking forward. There are a lot of folks that want to move to Tennessee, and they're coming. Whether we're ready or not, they're going to be here. And we certainly need a congressman who goes to Washington who's going to fight for the 4th District, and certainly want to be a congressman that people are proud of. I would love to be the congressman that no matter what political ideology you describe yourself as, I would love for folks to say, there goes my congressman, and I'm proud to have him as my congressman.
Well, the sense I get in Bradley County particularly, we've done very, very well in attracting those world-class jobs, continue to do so, still have too many people who don't make enough money to support their families because of increased cost of almost everything except gasoline for the past year. But this sense of a lack of responsibility, that national debt, that's what I hear here in Bradley County, is the national debt and the fact that unless we do something with Social Security, it's gone, as I understand it, as early as 10, some people say 2027, some people say 2035. We got to go now.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Social Security, you know, one of the things are the $118,000 cap on Social Security. So there's about 750,000 people that live in the 4th District of Tennessee. And actually less than 2% of the people that live here make more than $118,000. So you would think that overwhelmingly 98% of the folks that live here would favor increasing that cap. Now, if we raise that cap in Social Security to $250,000, Social Security would be solvent for 52 years. In addition to that, folks on fixed income that are making around $15,000 or $16,000 a year, which is the poverty level, they would see an increase of somewhere around an additional $1,200 per year. So I think that overwhelmingly the people of Tennessee should support that of lifting the cap. And I think if we do, we can put the Social Security issue to bed for the next 52 years and move on to the issues that affect Tennesseans even more. As far as fiscal responsibility goes, we talk about that. I certainly believe that we should balance the budget. I would favor a balanced budget amendment. I'm a businessman, and I've dealt with small and medium and large corporations and family businesses for the last 28 years, and I certainly would want to help create a business-friendly environment here, but we have to be fiscally responsible on the government level in order to spur that economic development. And so I certainly believe in pay-as-we-go, any new programs. I think that we should certainly fund those programs as we go, and I think we have to be fiscally responsible regarding our borrowing and paying down our debt.
Well, you've mentioned a seemingly relatively simple and 98% benefit to the proposal about Social Security. How does this distinguish you from the present Congressman, Dr. Desjardins?
Well, I think Dr. Desjardins spoke in the past about, actually raising the age of retirement. And I can tell you, I'm 46 years old, Jim, and I've worked for 30 years now, and I sure would like to retire at 65, I can tell you that now. But it really looks like for Generation X, which is what I represent, Gen Xers are going to have to work until they're about 70 or 72 years old before they can retire. And so I think that when we really look at the economics of the situation and who this would impact, I mean, let's face it, folks that make more than $118,000 a year, doesn't it make sense for them to continue to pay Social Security rather than for that to be cut off at whatever threshold they reach that amount of money? And I certainly think they can afford it, and I just favor that. I really do. I think that we could help a lot of folks and get this off of the Congress, get it out of Congress's, off of their plate so that they can focus on other issues.
One of the things you mentioned early on, Mr. Reynolds, was the issue of infrastructure. We read the reports all the time about failing highways and bridges and things of that nature. Cost a lot of money to build those, but as I understand it, with the static gas tax and the funding coming from that, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe billions and billions of dollars short of the monies necessary to maintain or rebuild our infrastructure.
That's exactly right. The American Civil Engineers Society estimates that we're spending about half of what we need to be spending on infrastructure today. Now, both presidential candidates have both declared that they want to double down on the infrastructure spending in this country. So I asked the people of the 4th Congressional District, doesn't it make sense to have a congressman that can assist the president, whoever it is, who wants to double on the infrastructure spending? And would it make sense to have a congressman with 28 years of experience there trying to assist the president in getting this legislation through and finding the sustainable funding that we have to have? We certainly know that infrastructure jobs are not exportable. They employ Americans. And when we build our infrastructure, that's how we attract the world-class jobs. You look at the Volkswagen factory, for example, and I was very interested when Volkswagen was trying to decide whether or not to come to Tennessee or Alabama. And that was the finalist, was Tennessee and Alabama. And Tennessee said to Volkswagen, they said, look, Volkswagen, we have a brand new site, or we have a site that's ready. It has electric, it has water, it has fiber. We have a new interchange. Volkswagen, all you have to do is build your factory and start shipping your cars. Alabama said, we have a cotton field, and don't worry, we'll get to all of that. And so Volkswagen, it was one of the many reasons why Volkswagen chose Tennessee and employing a lot of Tennesseans now. And so I believe that certainly as we invest in our infrastructure, not only in our roads, in our bridges, but also in preparing for global corporations or even small businesses to locate here, I think it's certainly one of the key elements that they look at. How fast can I get my products to market? How efficiently can my employees get to work? And those are all important things that we need to look at. In Rutherford County, for example, and I know Bradley County is growing and Murray County is growing. In Rutherford County, we're looking at 100,000 new people over the next 15 years. Wow. And so imagine dropping Neyland Stadium traffic on top of Murfreesboro right now. It will be a disaster, and folks, the standard of living there will decline dramatically. And so I contend that we need a congressman that's going to go to Washington, D.C. and fight for our infrastructure dollars and ensure sustainable funding for our infrastructure, because if we don't, our quality of living in certain parts of the 4th Congressional District are definitely going to decline.
We've seen some of that begin to develop here. I was reminded when you were talking about that, somebody told me that they had to sit at one of our local traffic lights through 3 cycles the other day before they could get through it, because we've seen dramatic growth here, much like Rutherford County has.
Yes.
And that's going to take dollars to get to make those changes necessary to accommodate, as you said, quality of life issues.
Mm-hmm, that's exactly right. So right now we're just watching it crumble, basically. We're watching a legacy that the greatest generation left to us was the interstate highway system. And we've chosen to put Band-Aids on it as a society. And so what we have to do is have the political courage to step up and say, we're going to take care of our infrastructure, we're going to improve our infrastructure, and we're going to improve the quality of our citizens' lives. And that's what I certainly believe in, one of the things that I certainly believe in doing.
Well, I don't think anybody could disagree with that, but then we go back to that issue that I hear people talk about from Rutherford County as well as Bradley County and all the counties in between. Fiscal responsibility. Can we stand paying a third of our gross revenues on interest on debts that were incurred many years ago?
That's exactly right, and that's one of the challenges that we're facing. And so as we become more fiscally responsible, we have to look across the board. I certainly favor programs that we find ineffective, and we see them in the paper all of the time, of some of the crazy things the federal government does. Certainly we should end those programs that we find silly or ineffective, but we need to look at all departments and say, you know, do we really need to be defending 22 countries in Eastern Europe, for example, that aren't paying us a dime to defend their countries? And so I think we have to start looking globally at, you know, are we going to continue to be the police force of the world, and who are we going to continue to pay for that? So when we look at fiscal responsibility, we have to look at every aspect of it, not just social programs here or not just infrastructure here, but we need to look at every program and be responsible everywhere.
Well, one of the great things that is troubling to many of us in Southeast Tennessee, and I think across the United States, is the problems with terrorism and an outfit called ISIS or ISIS.
Right.
What in the world? People who do not believe in the sanctity of life in any respect.
Right.
What is going on? Are we making successes? The Joint Chiefs of Staff apparently have recommended the policies we now are undertaking, or do you have an opinion regarding those issues?
Yeah, you know, foreign policy, especially in the Middle East, and is you know, obviously a tricky thing. We've toppled secular dictators, and we've left a vacuum, and so bad guys have filled that vacuum. Now, you know, a lot of the ways that they're recruiting folks today is Western technology. You know, they didn't invent Facebook in Iraq. Twitter didn't come from Libya. And so I believe that we have the technological capacity to essentially shut these folks down in their recruiting that they have going on overseas. So, you know, I think we have to look at technology, and we have to win the war of ideas as well. I mean, these folks are not familiar with democracy, with free republics, even with equality amongst the sexes. And so we have to start trying to win the war of ideas in the Middle East. But I think essentially what we have to do is become energy independent. And as we do that, then essentially we can kind of pull back from some of these trouble spots we need to, and take care of our own here in America. I think that the Tennesseans I talk to, we're getting pretty tired of taking care of the rest of the world. We're ready to start taking care of our people here.
Steve, I want to tell you how much we appreciate you stopping by. It's our belief at WTNB that the best vote is the informed vote.
Thank you.
If people have more questions that they would like to ask you or communicate with some of your advisors, how could I get in touch with Steve Reynolds if I needed to get a message to him?
Thanks for that question, Jim. You can go to my website. It's reynolds2016.com. You can find out our issues on the stances there. I'm really a moderate, folks, and so you're not going to find it, well, it's kind of like a unicorn today, quite frankly. And you can go to our Facebook site, which is Steven Reynolds for U.S. Congress. We're also on Twitter at Reynolds for Rep. And you can send me an email personally if you'd like to, Jim, at steven@reynolds2016.com. I try to answer every email that I get or any message that I get. I think it's important for our citizens to have accessibility to their leaders in Congress and to be able to speak to their leaders in Congress. And I think that's why we have a lot of folks in Washington that are out of touch with the normal people.
There's one question that somebody told me to ask you.
Okay.
Yes or no answer. Last question. Are you in favor of term limits?
Yes, I do favor term limits. I certainly do. And you know, the power rests with the people, though. They can put term limits in anytime they want to.
They sure can.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Steven Reynolds.
All right.
Folks, thank you so much for being with us right here. We're going to have other interviews with many of the other candidates. We encourage those of you who are not registered to vote to please register to vote and then exercise your right. The privilege of living in this country is dependent on the people telling the representatives what changes we need, and for the representatives to then cast an informed vote on the issues when we elect them and hold them accountable for the offices which they hold. Thanks so much. We'll see you on the turn.